You got to give it to Donald Trump. He is dominating the national debate. Now he wants to take on the U.S. Constitution, specifically the 14th Amendment. An amendment that doesn't get talked about a lot, but has been at the core of some of the most important and controversial rulings and issues in our country's history. The amendment was used to overturn the Dred Scott decision, giving citizenship and equal protection to recently freed slaves. It was used by the Supreme Court in the Roe v. Wade ruling, legalizing abortion across the nation. And it was used recently by the Supreme Court in the same-sex marriage ruling, all based on the 14th Amendment. You see, part of the 14th Amendment prevents states from taking away rights from U.S. citizens. But that's not the part of the 14th Amendment that Donald Trump has a problem with. He has a problem with one sentence that reads, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside." So it's pretty clear that if you were born in the United States, you're a citizen here. But Trump argues it's not so clear and told Bill O'Reilly,
Bill, I think you're wrong about the 14th Amendment, and frankly, the whole thing with anchor babies and the concept of anchor babies, I don't think you're right about that. I think
can
it's
quote
going to
it.
be
You want me to
proven that you're
quote you
wrong.
the amendment? If you're born here, you're an American. Period. Period.
But there are many lawyers are saying that's not the way it is in terms of this.
all right, so there's a lot to explain here. Let's start with anchor babies. An anchor baby is when an illegal immigrant comes to this country specifically to have a baby here, so they automatically become a U.S. citizen. That's what the 14th Amendment promises, right? Or does it? Here's a little history. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 and was really just the North imposing its will on the defeated South. The line that Donald Trump has a problem with was there to grant freed slaves citizenship. But does the amendment extend beyond freed slaves? Most would say yes, but the Supreme Court has ruled no. John Elk, a Native American born on a reservation, moved to Omaha, Nebraska, and claimed citizenship under the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court ruled, no, you can't do that. Just because you were born on American soil does not grant you citizenship. So there are exceptions. So the Trump administration could claim an exception, arguing that the 14th Amendment was never intended to help those who were trying to come here illegally. Or he could argue the entire 14th Amendment is unconstitutional because of the way it was ratified. According to the Constitution, it can only be amended with a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate. In order to get that 2/3 vote in the Senate, 28 senators, mostly from the South, were excluded from the vote. So it could be argued that Congress never really got the 2/3 required to pass the 14th Amendment. Second, 3/4 of the states in the Union must also vote to ratify the amendment. Now, back in 1868, there were only 37 states. And on the first vote, 15 states rejected the proposed amendment, far short of the 3/4. So the North just imposed its will on the South and replaced the legislators. It could be argued that second vote was invalid, and therefore the Second Amendment was never ratified. And finally, the Constitution requires that every resolution or bill passed by Congress be presented to the President for his approval. The resolution proposing the 14th Amendment was never presented to President Andrew Johnson because he probably would have vetoed it. So does that all mean that Donald Trump is right? Not necessarily. But he's not necessarily wrong either. And as he says,
Now it's going to have to be tested.
yeah, that is right. It would have to be tested, and it would be tested when President Trump started mass deportations. But that's not necessarily going to happen either. I'm Larry Mendte. See you next week.